Welcome to the Connected Growth Coaching Podcast, where we support women to rediscover who they are so they can thrive in all parts of their lives. Your hosts, Jen Heilman and Amanda Kingsley, share with you unique life coaching resources centered around the power of the mind and the ancient practice of feng shui.
All right.
It's podcasting.
Podcasting.
Hello, everybody.
How's everybody doing? I'm going to take a little sip of coffee here.
Jen poured coffee, and I was like, I cannot drink any more coffee. I'm going to have lemon water. I've been getting up at 5:15. Well, really 5:30. I've been getting up at 5:30 to write, and I need coffee in the morning to be able to do that.
Right.
So by the time I get my kids to school, I've had like 2 or 3 cups of coffee.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
lemon water.
Yeah, I woke up this morning. Yesterday, I noticed was a weekend day.
Yeah.
And I woke up late, and let myself sleep in. And then it made me feel kind of like, meh.
Did you actually sleep in, or was it the time change?
It was a time change. It was a time change, for sure. But it was also like, I was genuinely tired, and I was like going to give myself this rest. But when I do, I don't necessarily feel better.
Interesting.
I've
actually noticed that.
Yeah.
I have been a late sleeper my entire life. My parents were late sleepers. I've told myself a million times over that I'm not a morning person. We're so off topic, but it's great. Okay. I love it. And about 2 months ago, I decided I was going to start getting up early to write my book, because otherwise it wasn't going to get written. Now, if I get up at like 6:30, I'm like, oh my God, it's so late. Like it really, like almost 40 years of telling myself I'm not a morning person. And now I think it's late if I get up at 6:30. I'm like, what just happened? That was really fast.
Yeah, right? To make that huge shift. Yeah.
And the difference, the difference is like, there's so much passion behind the shift for me. Like that the vision of writing the book is so important. And I don't even write that much every morning. I write like 500 words. Yeah. It's not happening very quickly, but it's happening. And the vision of writing the book is so strong that it's shifting that habit for me. So like if you're trying to lose weight, like the vision of what you're trying to create in your life, if it's strong enough, you will create the new habit much quicker than.
Well, and also just the baby steps or the baby bites, you're saying it's only 500 words, and I'm going, well, damn, that's a lot. 500 words every day. That's a lot, Yeah.
No,
so,
baby steps.
And baby steps create a book, Baby steps lose the weight, Baby steps
and
build a business.
We've been talking to our current clients a lot lately about the discomfort in the baby steps. And it's really uncomfortable for me to get up that early in the morning. And it still is, even though I do it. But knowing that I can do that, and that I go move through the discomfort and I don't die, because my brain used to be like, you're going to die. If you get up that early, you're eventually going to die. Like it's going to kill you. That's what my brain would tell me. And now my brain's like, oh no, you can do the discomfort, and you're not going to die. Right. So then when I want to push myself out of my comfort zone for other things, I know like, oh yeah, you're not going to die. Right. Just because it's uncomfortable. Right. The world's not going to end.
Right. Exactly. I was totally motivated this morning. Mondays are great because after a weekend, the house is destroyed because everybody's been there.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And so Mondays I get up and I'm like, oh, I get to clean the house again, and it's not because I'm, the feng shui person, like I keep the house fairly easy to maintain. And so it doesn't take more than 15 or 20 minutes to put the whole thing back together and start fresh. But if I don't do that, if I don't start the week out that way, I'm behind the 8 ball the whole time. It makes me crazy. So I would rather. So I woke up. That was my inspiration.
Motivation.
Yeah, it was my motivation.
Like,
I was
my week is going to be so much better.
So much better if I get these things done. And I tell you what, I feel like a rock star right now.
You look like a rock star.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are starting a really cool series this morning.
Yeah.
So feng shui is such an integral part of the work that we do. That's the outside in. That is so much a piece of the success story to us. Like, you gotta work the outside, you gotta work the inside. When you work them together, everything changes. You can do one or you can do the other, and that's awesome. Like, props to you. Anything you do is better than nothing. But when you do both, there's a completely different thing that happens. And so
there's more and more evidence that I'm seeing, and maybe it's just because of what we're attracting and the law of attraction and all that kind of stuff, but there's more and more evidence, like that article that you just sent to me today, and just the fact that like doing the work with the internal work, you know, the outside work with the internal work, the internal work with the outside work is so much more, it just moves things along. It's sustainable, all that kind of stuff. And so we're seeing it in different forms, not necessarily in feng shui or like coaching,
that book that went crazy, like the magical art, was up something Art of Tidying. That one went nutso, and people really resonated with that in a different way. It wasn't like clean your, and my husband said this to me this weekend. He's like, I know you want it clean for image. I'm like, you can think whatever you want to think. Like, I'm not going to get into this, but that book was not about everyone living in pretty homes. That book was about, like, is this pen from a free hotel in 1950 serving you? Right. Can you release it? It doesn't even work.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, there is more and more for sure. And even just the, in terms of the woo world and the spirit world, like the way quantum physics is coming into the scene is really cool. Really and like in the next 10, 20 years is going to be a massive shift.
Yeah. It's starting in our world. We see it. The science of the world. And I've had people say that to me all the time. Like, why are you afraid to talk about feng shui? It, you know, it's not necessarily, it has a woo-woo feel to it because it feels magical, but it's scientific how it comes to being, you know? Yeah. So
anyways, cool. Well, so feng shui is so important to the work that we do. And we have so many resources that walk you through the Bagua map. And all of our episodes link you to Jen's article about the Bagua map. And we decided that we wanted to end 2018 really taking the time to go through each area of the Bagua map, not only so that you can end the year really understanding the map in a new way, obviously not completely, but as much as we can get into podcast episodes, and so that you can go back, you know. So if down the road in the middle of 2019 or in 2022, we're saying, like, here's what's happening in your wealth area, like, go listen to podcast episode, yada, yada.
Right.
Because if you really we realize how helpful it would be to you as listeners to have really individualized podcasts for each of these areas. So, because Jen is our resident feng shui ninja, I am going to, we're going to do this sort of interview style. And I am going to ask her some questions about each of the spaces. And then we'll take our break like we always do. And then we'll come back and bring it around to the mind and the journal / thought work, mindset work around it. But really, we want to lay a foundation. So we've talked for 8 minutes so far. So this episode might be a little on the longer side, and then we'll stick to the, 20 to 30 minute episodes for each area. And you can look forward to those in the next 8 weeks of the year.
Awesome.
So today, the big question is always, where do we start?
Right.
I kind of pulled this one out. I really felt like, I think I was like, Jen, you can start wherever you want, but I think we should start here. And Jen's like, okay. She's so good. She's like, oh, whatever works for you. I'm like, great. That feels good to me. Anyway, we are starting with knowledge and self-cultivation. So if you've been a listener, if you already know our work, check out the Bagua map. Knowledge and self-cultivation is on that wall with the architectural door. It's going to be on the left side of the map, closest to the door. And it is, I will say straight up, like, I'm hesitating because I say this about a lot of spaces, but I don't know. I think even Jen would agree. This is one of the places I personally have some of the most resistance.
Right.
This and the love area, which is connected to it. So Yeah. We're going to start with knowledge and self-cultivation.
Yeah.
So my question to you, Jen, is what's the most important thing we should know about this area?
So I think that most people, they kind of put this to the side because of the fact that it's not one of the sexier, guas, right? It's like knowledge and self-cultivation. Whack, whack, whack. It's like not, it's not love, it's not money, it's not career or fame. Yeah, exactly. So they, kind of like, well, if I go to college or if I read a book, then I'm like fulfilling this. And this is really a deeper knowing of self. And so when you are, and it is the foundation of the work that we do.
I was just laughing. I'm like, it's really freaking hilarious that I have the most resistance to this area. And the work that we do is most centered in this area.
So keep what you need to learn, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is a big struggle for me. I think it's a big struggle for most of the people that we work with. And so obviously we're learning about this kind of stuff, and so we're teaching what we've learned and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it really is this deeper knowing of self. One of the main themes in this area is your connection to your intuition, right? And really connecting into that deeper knowing of, I'm pointing to my third eye. Yeah, exactly. Like that kind of, that knowledge that comes from your inner wisdom. It is that inner wisdom. It's basically the other word for it, or the other word for this area. So a lot of times, just a little backstory, a lot of times it's because this comes from a Chinese culture, it's ancient in, it's like 3,000 to 5,000 years old. It's one of those things that we're interpreting it from this like really outer layer, because we, as people outside of the Chinese culture have not learned this on a level. We've never lived with it. Like,
I know. I said before, like I've been to China twice, and that's my favorite thing about being there is like so deep in the culture.
Yeah,
like everything is placed so intentionally.
Right.
And that is just, it's incredible. That's how they live. That's how they grow up. That's how it's like part of who they are, to realize how important this stuff is.
Right, exactly.
And to us, we're like, oh, bring it on the woo.
Right.
Like, no, this is like central to your well-being.
Right. And it just, so we're interpreting all of that with this just bird's eye view, so the words that may have come up, were knowledge, and so we interpret it as like, okay, put a bunch of books in that area. And if you go to college, you're good, and like go to school and all that stuff. And it's really about this more internal awareness and knowledge of self and self-cultivation of like practicing that continuous growth, right? And expansion, and trusting your inner knowledge, that inner wisdom. And so one of the other words that can be used in this area is that wisdom. And so wisdom comes with it, you're lucky to be born with it, but not many people are, and it's something that grows. And so you're constantly learning and striving to, to grow. And
I actually had this thought just a minute ago when I was thinking about why I have so much resistance in this area. And I think part of it is because I am committed to growing and changing on a daily basis. So I'm always facing this new level of myself and my wisdom.
Yeah.
So it's like there's almost like a room for embracing that. Right. Being like, oh, there's some resistance here because you're doing the work.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You totally. Absolutely.
I'm really good at putting spins on things. So.
Yeah, but they make sense.
But it's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. You keep the resistance comes because you keep bumping into your upper levels, right? Your upper limits, so to speak. And so like you keep bumping into those like almost on a daily basis. Oh, yeah. Right? And it's not necessarily, it's not really a comfortable place to bump up against, even though you have the ability to understand that, that's where you're at. So so resistance comes when you're like, oh, here we go again, I don't know if I want to do this.
There's more to learn. There's more to learn. And sometimes that's like Well, I would say it's always a gift, but sometimes it can feel like really?
Yeah.
There's more to learn.
I just want to
reach the finish line.
Right. I just want to zone out with some TV right now.
Yeah.
So that
inner wisdom.
Yeah. So inner wisdom is really the key piece to this. And when you have that inner wisdom, you know how to, this radiates out to, it's because the reason I think it's so important is because it radiates out to so many other areas of your life, like all of the areas, right? So it's directly related to the love area, right? So you have this deep knowledge of self and what your boundaries are, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. You understand who you are and what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your vulnerabilities are, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can go into a relationship, a love relationship, from a much stronger place, right? And create a relationship that really, flourishes and supports you and, helps you through those vulnerabilities and expands those strengths and all those kinds of things. And so, and when, and it also for like money, right? Like when you have the knowledge, to be able to create wealth and the wealth comes in, then you know what to do with it and you don't just lose it right away or it doesn't seep out through your fingers or, all that kind of stuff. So it really is, a fundamental foundational piece in this growth and self-expansion kind of work. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you've kind of answered some of these questions, but like, tell us a little bit about how this space connects like out to the bigger, not just our home or like love, but like out to the bigger world. How do we show up in the world differently when we have a connection to this space, and then intention around this space, and then also like on the smaller picture, how does it affect our family or our like inner I mean, you kind of explain the inner self part. So like, how does it affect your family who live in the home with you, smaller space, smaller community, and then the big picture?
Yeah, I think that, big picture, what comes to mind is just like what you just said, how you show up in the world, right?
Yeah.
And you're coming at things from a totally different place, because you're not listening to all the outside noise, all the chaos, all the social media and stuff, because you really have developed this relationship within yourself that you feel confident in.
Yeah.
And you understand, that maybe that's not for you, or you understand you're not going to buy into the marketing or the advertising because you're like, no, I got this, that's not for me, or I don't believe that, or, like that
or even just showing up with curiosity. I mean, I would argue that like, that's the most important way we can show up in the world is as a curious human being.
Right.
And so if you've connected with this piece of yourself that's like constantly seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom versus like going out in the world to be like, I have some wisdom to share with you. Like that's going to create resistance. Whereas if you're going out into the world, like, what am I going to learn today?
Yeah.
Like, how differently do you show up in the world, and how does that ripple out? Like huge, massively.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I've, as you know, Jay and I, my husband and I went on a little weekend adventure this weekend, and we ended up, we didn't really know where we were going. We used a Groupon, and landed in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, at a time where nothing is happening because the foliage is gone and there's no snow, and it was raining. And so, there wasn't really anything to do in the town we were staying in and everything. So we got curious about it, you know, instead of being negative and, complaining our way through it. We were like, well, what can we do? Let's have some fun. Let's find the local things, and just like being comfortable in who we are. We ended up at this really fancy restaurant up on the hill. They called it the Castle and everything. And we didn't really know what we were getting into, but like just showing up in our, jeans and our boots and just showing up as us.
Awesome.
And all these people around us, you know, were trying to be something they were not because they were in this fancy restaurant, right? And Jay and I had this, you know, really amazing conversation about like just showing up as who you are and not worrying about what everybody else is thinking. Right?
And the fancy food tastes just as delicious in jeans as it does in high heels.
Exactly. But they, you know, the people around us were not having, you know, an awesome experience because they were like sitting up straight. They clearly, the energy of their experience, you know, we were just observing, you know, very casually their experience, and they weren't having as much fun, you know, because they were like feeling like they had to, you know, put out this presence that just wasn't even them, you know. So anyways, I think once you're in touch with like those kinds of things, you can show up to the fancy schmancy place and be like, hells yeah, we're here. Like,
exactly.
Let's have some, you know, some fun. And so, and be okay with that. And then, you know, it's amazing when you show up in the world like that, how people respond to you. Yeah. They're just like, oh, hey, the Heilmans are here. You know, like, let's do this.
They know who they are. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. All right. So what are the most effective or most powerful, I'm not really sure what the word is, like do's and don'ts for this area? So if you figure out where it is in your home and you're like, do this, don't do this. Right.
Exactly. So this area is really about being in touch, being able to get in touch with yourself. And so meditation is a key, you know, whether it's yoga or we were just talking about that this morning. I prefer to do yoga as a form of meditation. So, you know, that works for me. Amanda takes a shower, you know, that's your form of meditation. You know, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but like, if that space can represent a quiet place to land, to help you quiet things down. And sometimes it's really difficult. For me, it's my kitchen, you know, so it is the hub of our universe in our home. And so it's, you know, constantly being inundated with things and stuff and paperwork and, you know, busy, all the time. Yeah. So just having knowledge of the fact that this is my knowledge area and knowledge and self-cultivation area, and then I need to keep it kind of clear and open and inviting so that when I walk into that room, I breathe deeply instead of, you know, hold my breath, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's really, you know, keeping it clutter-free, keeping it open, reducing the outside noise like magazines or, you know, TV or whatever. I know that your TV is in that area, but you're conscious to shut that down for large portions of the day, you know? And so we can't move the TV out of that area. That's totally fine, but you can be conscious of your choices, you know, and quieting it down for certain times of the day. I cover mine with a scarf. Yeah. And it's really effective. Yeah. Right. It feels really peaceful when I do that. Like there's this moment of like, putting it away. Right. Yeah. Because we you know, we've been taught that the blank screen, you know, is up there and we should be looking at it. Right. Yeah. So even when it's not on, you're like drawn to it, you know, it's just like looking at your phone, you know, you're just, or it's looking at you. Yeah. There's a reflection. Yeah. It's also looking at you. Like, it's just like, close it off and keep it quiet. Right. Interesting. So it's really, you know, if you can quiet things down physically, you know, you're not necessarily going to quiet down the activity of a kitchen. So there's a difference between like books versus magazines. Yeah. Knowledge, you know, like, and growing and reading and all that kind of stuff. And really, especially if you love a certain type of book or, you know, a novel or whatever, those kinds of things where you're really soaking things in is great. But like, magazines, like the newspaper with the front page headline. The latest shooting might not be the right place. Not good. Not good. So, any of that is really super important. Awesome. Yeah. So if our listeners were going to do one thing in their knowledge and self-cultivation area, like just one little achievable, like 30-second task, right? Yeah. What would you suggest they do? I always love to go to color. You know, each area of the Bagua is related to a certain color, and color has a vibration to it, you know, and so the color blue is the area of that, of knowledge and self-cultivation. So like just, bringing in some kind of element that's blue, literally it could be, if you have 30 seconds, and you have like a blue, my daughter always puts her blue jacket on one of the backs of the dining room chair, in the kitchen chair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm going to let it go. It's blue.
It's really funny.
So
my husband's blue jacket goes in that room.
Yeah, there you go. So just having some piece like that, and having that, whether you have blue glass, a lot of people have blue glass, you have, just whatever blue element.
I just got new blue pillowcases for my throw pillows. Did you see them?
I haven't seen them. I'll have to go check them out. Yeah.
Yeah, so, blue. That's a good one.
And it can be whatever blue resonates with you, right?
Yeah.
Like not everybody, is going to resonate with like a navy blue or a royal blue. So pick a blue that feels good to you.
Feels calming to you, or like solid.
Exactly.
Like kind of just grounding.
Yeah. That calming, feeling is really super important.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a little break, and then I'll come back, and we'll both come back, and I'll do some chattering about sort of like how you can take your pen to paper or your just brain to thought.
And dig in a little
bit on the inner work. Let's face it, no two lives are the same, and there are no one-size-fits-all tips and tricks. We love connecting with you on the podcast, but remember that if you want game-changing results, one-on-one coaching is where it's at. You can access our programs at connectedgrowthcoaching.com, and we will walk you through the unique circumstances that arise in your life and your home. All right. Woo! Mm-hmm. I just as you were talking, this massive shift that I want to make in my house regarding that room. So I'm pretty excited to get on that. It's kind of one of those like, why have you never done that before? It's been the same room and the same furniture and the same whatever for 15 years that you've been here.
I know, but I think it's important to say that you go through this process, and like we've talked about before, it's a lifestyle and it's a journey, and you continue to unfold and peel back the layers, and you weren't ready for it before.
Well, interestingly enough, I said to Jen, because we coach each other, that's a huge part of the work we do, and I said, like, hit me up, what do I need to do? And she was like, you gotta work, because my knowledge and self-cultivation area actually extends to my front porch, which can get crazy town cluttered. With bikes and scooters and cleats and like just gear, and it can get really messy. It can get really like overwhelming. And I have a lot of issues around that area. So anyway, I took the time this weekend to clean it, and I was like, Jen, it's not what I want it to be. Like, I'm not going to spend $500 and like buy fancy benches and like at least that's not where I'm at right now. But I'm going to clean it.
But when I walked in today,
I think it's really interesting that I'm having this aha moment about moving a bookshelf after I did that work of cleaning.
Right. Because it starts to come in afterwards.
Yeah,
right?
And I do the cleaning work very intentionally. Like I say to myself and the universe, like I set an intention, like please, like allow this to bring me to the next place I need to go. Doesn't matter where I'm cleaning, where I'm shifting, where I'm decluttering. I just like kind of set that intention. Like, I don't know what it is, but let this bring me to the next place I need to go. So,
and I would say, really interesting. The intent, just to interrupt for one sec, the intention that you can say, that if you're not at a level that Amanda is at with the cleaning and the intentions and all that kind of stuff, because you've been doing this work for years, is just simply something like out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just out with the old, in with the new. And just like, welcoming, letting go, which is out with the old, letting go, and then in with the new of like new opportunities and new energy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cause you even look at that mess, that clutter, and you're like, well, I'm not going to get rid of anything.
Yeah.
Like I just have to deal with it. Right. And then you actually get in there and you're like, okay, we don't need 3 sizes of size 6 cleats, and we don't need the Halloween trash from whatever, and we don't need like the Frisbee from the downtown firefighter fair. Like, you know, so you look at the first time you look at it, you're like, well, I can't change anything. But I'm not going to get rid of anything. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, I actually am. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing the work. So doing the work in terms of your mind, I just jotted down 2 questions that I would have you ponder, think about, write about, process with a friend. And the first one is like, what are the circumstances in your life when you feel most connected to your inner wisdom? So just start noticing. Like I've said many, many times, and we'll say many, many more times, like I feel deeply connected to my truth, my center, my inner wisdom, my guides, like my whatever, when I'm showering, when I'm driving, and when I'm doing dishes. Like, and then those are 3 really common I'm not the only one. So if you're going, oh my gosh, me too, like that's super common. So there are 3 places that come up for a lot of people. But you start noticing, is it when you crawl into bed at the end of the night with a book? Is it when you wake up in the morning into a quiet house? Like just start noticing where and how you connect to your inner wisdom, or do you never? That's something to notice. Like, I don't know when the last time I connected to my inner wisdom was. Can't even put a finger on it. That's just worth noticing. And that, you know, as always, try not to be judgmental. You know, try not to be hard on yourself, beat yourself up. Like, I don't ever have time or space to connect with my inner wisdom. That's okay. Just notice it and allow it to shift if it's ready to. But yeah, just start. No, I think the first step is always just awareness. So when are you most connected to that? Both like deep knowledge of what is in you, in the world, in spirit, whatever it is, and also like thirst for more, right?
I love that you give those examples too. Like you don't have to be on the top of a mountain with your legs crossed and going away, right? Like meditating and connecting
in your Buddha robe,
right? You don't have to, you know, surrounded by incense, you know,
be
like
doing
doing dishes or driving in the car or taking a shower, right? And I think that that's a missing piece in our society, is that we don't realize that, you know, for me, you know, just, I'm not even necessarily doing yoga. I'm air quoting right now. I'm like stretching.
Right.
I'm like stretching. I'm just like doing what feels good in my body because it helps me feel good. And that's when I get a lot of downloads, you know?
I bet there's a lot of people who have them exercising.
Yeah.
Running,
walking,
hiking.
Yep. Exactly.
And so anytime we've had, I forget what the name of the episode was, but we did a whole episode on this, but anytime you get that brain resistance where you're like, I don't have time to connect to my inner wisdom. I don't know how to connect to my inner wisdom. That's just a story. Anytime you're blaming that sort of like external or finding an excuse, like there's something deeper. So, you know, we're just straight up telling you, like, it might be doing dishes, which is like the most unglamorous thing ever, but that might be the place where you have this deep connection, you know, the water and just like the
water actually is a source of connection.
For sure. So just notice. That's my first. And I have one more question for you, which is to just ask yourself, like, you know, how are you showing up in the world to gather knowledge, and where are you showing up to share knowledge? And are you showing up to preach, lecture, push knowledge down other people's throats? Or are you showing up to say, here's a way to look at it. What about this perspective? And really being curious, right? Like, not only having curiosity when you have an intention to learn, but having curiosity when you teach or when you share. So, like, how are you showing up in the world to gather and share knowledge? And just start by noticing. And then if you want to take it another step, be like, how do I want to show up in the world to gather and share knowledge? Where do I want to show up in the world to gather and share knowledge? Maybe maybe I am in a job that is highly dependent on me sharing my wisdom, but it's not the wisdom I want to be sharing, right? Maybe I'm sharing information about fitness and nutrition, but what I want to be sharing is information about intuition and outdoor adventure. I don't know, like right. Whatever it is, like, yeah. So that was how you could take it further. Like, where and how do I want to show up and share and receive knowledge? So right. Yeah, that's it. That's what I have for us. We're probably, how are we going to do this? I think we've really been liking this theme of like using the two areas of the Bagua map that interplay with each other. So I think we had it set up for the love area next week. So next week we'll talk about the love and relationship area. Awesome. Let's do it. Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thank you. As always, like, please share with friends. I feel like these particular episodes are going to be integral to like understanding this work and sharing it with other people. So absolutely. Awesome. Till next week. Okay. As always, thanks for listening. If you learned something today that can help the people in your circle, please help us get the word out by sharing. When you leave us a rating and review on iTunes, it not only warms our hearts, but it helps people find us. We are eternally grateful for your support, and we're looking forward to connecting with you next week. Until then, you can find the show notes at www.connectedgrowthcoaching.com. You can grab your journal and then get your shui on.